So the South Coast derby between Southampton and Portsmouth finishes 0-0. We've seen some corkers over the last few years, 5-1s either way, 2-2s, 4-0s, of course, as well. This one finishes 0-0. It was just written in the stars, wasn't it? But I still thought it was worth talking about because there were some good bits for both sides. There were certainly some bits to improve on. I think one team comes away from this game feeling a lot better about things. I think one team is far happier with that point. I think that would be Portsmouth. I've written lots of things down. I've got some really, I think, insightful notes, a few bits that we're going to use through the use of the JLA tactics board, a few things we're going to look at from a statistical perspective, but I want you in the comment section down below. I imagine it's a draw, it's a 0-0. This did get hyped up, as they always do. We build these games up and then they finish goalless. Hopefully you can still get involved in the comment section down below. Hopefully you can still have your say, because I think there are some really interesting points. And like I said, there is one team that comes away from this far happier than the other. I've written down here Pompey's regretful first half, and we will speak about Pompey's first half performance because I thought it was sensational. I thought it was a really, really controlled, aggressive, John Mousinho-esque side, and so much better when we compare their performances away from home last season. There's been clearly a lot of work done on their work away from home over pre-season, because I think they had the second worst away record in the Championship last season. I think we've seen a lot of improvements, and in this game in particular, with the fact it was a derby, and people will say, of course, that form goes out the window, away records go out the window, it's who turns up on the day. Although I do agree with that, of course, but I think we definitely have seen improvements. I think we definitely have seen a better Pompey team away from home, and we saw it in that first half. And even aspects of the second half, I thought they defended well, although the momentum did shift. And we'll come on to that momentum graph in a second, because that does tell us a really good, I think, eye-opening story of how the game panned out. Southampton did improve. They really, really did. I think we saw a different side to Southampton in the second half. And of course, there was one player that I think shone through. A few players shone through, but one from an attacking perspective of Portsmouth, I was so impressed with. And also an underrated hero as well. Someone that Pompey fans have been speaking about for some time now. And we saw it with our own two eyes today. I thought he was great as well. More on that in just a second. But I wanted to take a look at this momentum graph that SofaScore have provided us, because it does paint a really, really good picture of this game, and it emphasises how good Pompey were in that first half. I think they were far more aggressive. They looked like they'd settled into the game a lot better tactically. They were piling pressure on Southampton, and also by doing that and being a lot more effective than Southampton, they were stopping what Southampton wanted to do as well, which was build up. They wanted to win the ball high, Pompey, and that, of course, stopped Southampton from using those attacking players that they had as well. And they couldn't find those players. They couldn't play out from the back. They were pinned in their own half at times, and they were forced to go direct, and that isn't really what Will still wants to do. But that's credit to Pompey, and that's credit to how they approached the first 45 minutes. And you can see with the momentum graph there, Southampton, very, very little, not much to see whatsoever, not many green spikes. Portsmouth, plenty. And, you know, there were, I wouldn't say lots of clear-cut chances. In fact, on the right of the screen, you can see one big chance each. I don't think there were loads and loads of Pompey massive chances. Of course, Dazelle, he hit the crossbar. Was that a big chance? Yes. Did it come out of nothing really? Yes, as well. And he was unlucky that doesn't go in the back of the net, because it would have been a fantastic strike. So, you know, that's one of those that on another day you look back on, and that's a game changer. I think that would have changed a lot of this game. If we saw a first half goal, we saw Pompey score in that first half, I think the second half would have been very, very different. I think the rest of the game would have been very, very different. But I've written down here, Pompey, so aggressive as expected. Really positive opening 45 minutes. I thought Swift was fantastic. I really, really did. I thought Dazelle and Swift were very, very good. I thought they complemented each other really well. Dazelle, I think, happy to progress forward, happy to be that aggressive player, maybe out of possession, very, very tenacious, really, really strong, uses his body exceptionally well. Breaks up play, he can do that. And Swift was a bit more of a controller, a bit more of a dictator in the centre of the pitch. I thought he got on the board very, very well, slipped into that back line seamlessly, allowed someone like then Ogilvie to push higher and Murphy get higher, allowed those players, those Pompey attackers to stay high and wide. I thought it was a really, really good performance by both Dizelle and Swift. We talk about winning the midfield battle. I thought in the first half, Pompey, they had Southampton on lock and were very, very controlling and played like the home side in that first half. I was really, really impressed by them. And when I come back to that point I said a second ago about Pompey almost feeling quite regretful about that first 45, that's what I mean. They were on top. They were dominating Southampton. They didn't allow them to be effective whatsoever. They, of course, hit the crossbar, had a few chances here and there, definitely forced Southampton to answer some difficult questions when that ball went into the box. And of course, we know who wants to get the ball into the box. It was that man, Josh Murphy, who I thought was really, really good. But let's move over to the tactics board and almost visualize why I thought Pompey were better than Southampton in the first half and why Southampton really struggled. And that was down to this 4-4-2 shape out of possession. And we mentioned it when we did a video on Connor Chaplin and his signing. He's a presser. He's someone that can be very, very energetic without the ball. Bishop will do that too. Murphy and Segasic moved into those wide areas. And when Chaplin pressed Stevens, he was then forced to go direct. Often Bishop would press Harwood Bellis and he'd be forced to go direct. If they did get the ball into someone like Flynn Downs or Shea Charles, you then had those midfielders that were very, very tenacious in winning the ball back. And it stopped them from gaining any type of momentum. And they did lack momentum and control, as we saw with that graph I showed you a second ago. And I expected Southampton to be almost set the tone in a way. They had that home advantage. We know Will still wants his side to have a lot of the ball, and the way that Pompey were, I think, brave actually in the way that they were aggressive going forward, that I think almost took Southampton by surprise. And actually that shows the progression of Portsmouth and the way that they play games on the road this season in comparison to last season. I think, of course, a derby game, you'd expect the aggression, you'd expect that energy and that excitement in a way, and that nervous energy maybe coming out in the way that you do play slightly more energetically than you would do in any other game. But if we're looking at it from a championship game on its own, which is, of course, very, very difficult, I think on other occasions, and maybe that did happen last season regardless of a derby, you would see Pompey a lot deeper. You'd see Southampton able to play through the press. You'd see them having 60, 70% possession. I don't know how much possession they had in that second half. Let's have a little look. If we zoom out for a second and look at that first half possession, you can see Pompey with more of the ball, 51% possession. Of course, a slight increase in possession, but still more than we expected. I think we'd expect Southampton as the home team in that first half to have a lot more than 49% possession. And actually, if we scroll down to the shots as well, Southampton, 3 shots, 1 on target. But it's this stat here that, again, when we speak about this regretful first half, Pompey were better. They hit the crossbar, of course, as mentioned, but 7 shots, none on target. And that will be the killer. That's going to be the killer that Pompey will walk away thinking, if only. Again, final third entries in that first half, 40-23, more accurate passes. Again, beating them in a lot of these metrics. But 0 shots on target, 0 big chances, low expected goals, and really only a crossbar hit that was the closest they came. I think Bishop had a chance as well inside the box. Again, that wasn't on target though. So testing the goalkeeper didn't really happen. And I said at the end there, and it was mentioned, I imagine, by a lot of people already, plenty of domination. But in these types of games against this type of opposition away from home, domination is great, but nothing to show for it. And that'll be the regretful element of Pompey's performance in this one. But again, they stopped Southampton from playing in that first half. I thought the centre of the pitch really didn't happen for Southampton, to be honest. I expected a lot more from Finn Azaz. And in that first half, if we sort of highlight the centre of the pitch, maybe I've gone slightly wide there, but Again, Shea Charles, I thought he was okay. I thought Downs, I thought he was okay. Finazaz didn't really do much at all in that first half. Archer in that first half, I think I wrote down here he had 10 touches, the least number of touches for an outfield player. Second half, that did improve. I thought they played to his strength slightly more, got him in behind. But when they were forced to go direct because of that press from Portsmouth, you're then going direct to Archer. He's not that type of player. He's not somebody that's going to bring the ball down with his back to goal, be that, like I said, that bullish number 9. Someone like Stewart, who came on, is someone that can do that. Bishop had a lot of time when he got it on the opposite side. I think someone should have maybe told him that there was room for Bishop to actually take the ball down, take a few touches, and look up. There were parts of Pompey's game that just could have. They were so nearly perfect in that first half, but it just didn't really totally come together in the final third. Before we move on to the second half, I've got to highlight Dazelle, and I've got to highlight Swift. I thought they were very, very coherent, very, very strong. We had Swift dropping deep. You had Dazelle being aggressive. I thought the two of those were really, really good. And the point I mentioned earlier about Swift sort of dropping into that back line, allowing those players to move up the pitch. In that first half in particular, you'd often see someone like Swift on the ball here. And then that almost allows Ogilvie then to push higher up. You then got Murphy able to push higher up because he wants to operate in this position here. If you go and look at his average positions, in fact, I can bring them up here. You can see where he touched the ball the most. Josh Murphy, here he is. Lots of touches just outside the penalty box. He got the ball there and swung it in so often. And again, that came from Swift being really comfortable and dropping into that back line, pushing those players higher up and allowing Murphy to operate in that dangerous part of the pitch. What you didn't really want was someone like Swift and Dazelle sitting quite symmetrical in a way, sort of just in front of that back line. Ogilvie forced deep, and then Murphy having to come back here and playing a lot of the game in that position because that's where he just isn't as effective. You want those attacking players to be in the most dangerous parts of the pitch, and that worked really, really well. So again, a really brave move. Very easily could have sat deep and sat organised in that low block with your Swift and Dazelle just sitting as a protector. But by allowing him to have a little bit more license to drop and get hold of the ball, I thought it was great. I thought the way they switched play in the first half was good as well. Segasic would often switch the play over to Murphy. Murphy would look up and often switch the play over to Segasic. And what that did was, if all the players are in this position here, of course, everybody's in that compact space. What Pompey wanted to do was create that overload on one side and then allow someone like Murphy to go 1v1. So let's say in this position here, Segasic has got the ball here. What he did really, really well often, I don't think it was Segasic's best game, by the way, what he did do was get the ball in that first half and then fire that ball over to Murphy, and then suddenly you did have that 1v1. That happened on both sides. That was a really effective way of Pompey's attacking transitional threat that they offered. Really good sort of high to low, I think it's called, tactical element to their approach. Second half, though, it changed quite a bit. It changed a lot, and we saw a Southampton team, I think, a lot more comfortable. I think they were a lot better. And that's, I think, emphasised with the statistics as well. Let's move on to the second half. 70% possession, a lot more of the ball. A better XG, Pompey creating 0.09 in the second half. Southampton not creating a whole lot more, but limiting Pompey to a lot less. Same number of big chances, 6 shots on target as well. A lot more passes, a lot more final third entries, 40 to 15. And I think, it was a game of two halves in a cliche sense, and that was the case. And individually, I thought Fellows was decent. I thought Fraser was half decent. I think they did offer a lot more post the break. It wasn't hard. As I thought in the first half, they didn't have any kind of attacking threat. Fellows 1v1, I thought was decent. Took his player on a couple of times. Fraser, similar. I thought he was all right. Again, I'm trying to find those positives for Southampton going forward because they were passive. They did struggle to find any kind of really quality elements of momentum, as we saw. And the second half momentum graph, I'll bring it back up here. I think it was better. But again, we're talking about quality spikes in the game. A lot more green, which suggests a lot more of the ball, which we know 70% of possession, but quality chances weren't there. What are they doing with the ball? What was the final output from that possession? Not a lot. Not a lot at all. And you look at the striker, Archer. First half, non-existent. Second half, put a bit more pressure on Paul and Shaughnessy. Maybe playing in behind suited him a lot more. I think we saw him do that, and the chance that I think he should have probably scored looked like he pulled it back for a player that wasn't there. He should have, he did the hard bit. That did come from him, being played in behind. So that suited him. Azaz, not impressed by him. We know what Finn Azaz can do. He did it in a Middlesbrough shirt. He did it in a Plymouth shirt. He's exciting. He's someone that can drive with the ball, can pick out a pass, can shoot. He's a really all-action attacking midfielder. I didn't see any of that action. Really lacked that action throughout the game. A bit better in the second half, if I'm being generous, but generally not a lot. So all in all, I think Southampton are the frustrated party. They are the team that walk away a lot more frustrated by this game ending a draw. Lack the stardust, lack that bit of brilliance. And we know that brilliance and stardust in these type of games in particular, it does get quite scrappy. And Pompey did well actually in that second half of, even if their attacking play wasn't as good and wasn't as fruitful, I thought they were still good out of possession. I thought Paul and Shaughnessy defended the box really well. Fullbacks were definitely on it. Even when Williams came on, I thought he was great. Again, maybe wanted a bit more from Segasic. I wasn't totally sold on his performance. Connor Chaplin, I think, again, in the press out of possession was good. From an attacking perspective, could have seen a bit more. Murphy was good. Bishop had his good bits as well. So clearly a team that walk away from this a lot more positively is Portsmouth, the away side. But yeah, it had to be a 0-0, didn't it? It was always going to be a 0-0 after all of the talk and the hype and build-up around this game. It was bound to be a 0-0 draw. But hopefully, I've still been able to give you a bit of insight into what I thought of the game. I think Southampton fans, if you are watching this, and Pompey fans, if you are watching this, let me know how you feel about it, because Southampton will walk away definitely the frustrated party. Need a lot more in the forward areas of the pitch, a bit more control, which will be a positive, a positive element for them. Pompey, I think we'll be proud of that. But we'll still look at that first half and go, could we have made a bit more? And could have we created a bit more from the dominance that we showed? But that's just the way football is. It's always the way. Let me know in the comment section down below, both sets of supporters, how you feel, what your takes are from this game. Until next time, I've been Jack. I'll see you very, very soon. Take care.